AM 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 21 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. A few, maybe weeks, maybe months ago, we had a story that the flamingo, which is all over Florida, not the bird itself, but images of the flamingo are all over Florida. And yet, you never see flamingos, except unless you go to like Busch Gardens or down in some of the tourist attractions. They have flamingos that seem to live in captivity, although they could fly away, I guess, unless their wings are clipped. I'm not really sure. But anyway, there was a story a few months ago or a few weeks ago about these scientists who, I think at the University of Florida, who discovered that there were some bird eggs that proved that the flamingo was a native bird to the state of Florida. And what that has to do with hunting them, I guess, is that if it's a native bird, you're not allowed to hunt them. And if it's not a native bird, I guess you can hunt them. So it was always believed it wasn't. Now they want to change that status to being a native bird. And if they do, who knew that people still hunted flamingos? Who knew that? But apparently the meat of the bird was good, and the feathers were in demand. And so the book we're going to talk about reminded me of that story, but it has an interesting beginning. Kirk Wallace Johnson is on the phone. He's the author of the book we're going to talk about called The Feather Thief, Beauty, Obsession, and the Natural History Heist of the Century. I'm reading it right. Kirk Johnson is a journalist, the founder of the List Project to resettle Iraqi allies. Wow, he's a contributor to The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Washington Post. I could go on and on with all the papers he writes for. And let's find out about the book, The Feather Thief. This sounds like an interview I wish was longer. Kirk Johnson, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Where are you right now?
I'm in Washington, D.C., my old stomping grounds.
Oh, really? All right. So you were fishing in northern New Mexico, is that right?
That's right. Almost 7 years ago, I was waist high in the Red River in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. I was fly fishing for trout, and my guide started talking about this museum heist that had happened a couple of years prior, and as he was telling it to me, it just struck me as the craziest story I'd ever heard, and it kind of grabbed my throat and hasn't let go since then.
Oh wow! Can you tell the listeners the story, or does it take too long? Give us the
No. It's about an American kid who broke into the British Museum of Natural History, 2009, walked out with 299 exotic bird skins that had been collected over hundreds of years. Got back to his dorm room at the Royal Academy of Music and plucked the feathers, which he sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars to this cultish community of Victorian salmon fly tyers who are essentially addicted to collecting these rare feathers so that they can tie them according to these 150-year-old patterns or recipes.
Now I see the connection with fly fishing, because the what do you call the lure or whatever has a feather on it usually, doesn't it?
It does, except in this case there's maybe like a dozen different species of birds. But the crazy thing is that salmon are essentially colorblind when they're spawning, so there's no biological basis for any of this. You can catch salmon with some dog bird tie onto a hook.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So then how did you take that seed of information and make it grow into, the journalistic approach you had and evenally a book?
With all of the historical facts, too.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
This is an amazing...
he was caught, but he lawyered up and never spent a night behind bars, and about a third of the birds were never found. So I've gone all over the world in the last 5 years in search of these missing skins, and I've infiltrated this community and uncovered an accomplice and all kinds of things. But there is a deep historical vein running through it, and part of it takes place not far from you guys in Florida, but the first wildlife preserves were meant to save the snowy egret from extinction. There were feather poachers that were hunting it to the brink of extinction, and down by the Everglades, Teddy Roosevelt basically protected areas so that bird, which was worth 4 times its weight in gold because of the value of its feathers, was protected ultimately.
Wow, I had no idea. And so is that? Did you? I'm sure you heard the intro about the flamingo. Is it similar to that story about being a native bird?
Yeah. I mean, we passed eventually the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which turns 100 years old this year, and that makes it illegal to hunt any migratory bird. I think the flamingo was certainly used in this was what was called the greatest direct extermination of wildlife in the history of the planet. Was for women's fashion in the Victorian era. These women would wear entire stuffed birds in their hats, and there was a global marketplace.
Yeah, Robin showed me one of the photos in the book of that. Oh my gosh, that is so crazy. In today's eyes, I mean, from maybe back then, I wouldn't have thought it was so crazy, right?
No, back then that was like the Gucci bag of its day.
Wow. So did you ever find any of the skins?
I did. It took about 3.5 years, but I managed to get the feather thief himself to agree to an interview. There was a confrontation with an accomplice in this small town in Norway. I'll try not to give away too much of the book, but this really became an obsession of my own where, a lot of people just think, oh, what's the big deal with dead birds and the museum? But we actually have a huge debt to these birds because they've helped us unlock all kinds of things, like the impact of DDT pesticides was discovered by studying these bird skins. We know that mercury levels are rising in the ocean because of studying our ability to study hundreds of years of birds at these collections. And so I felt a motivation to try to get them back because this was called a catastrophic blow to humanity, or a theft from humanity.
I don't know if this is too dumb of a question, but if the thief took the birds for the feathers, why would he even hold on to the skins? Why wouldn't he just dispose of them?
So in many cases, like some of these birds of paradise, for example, or another bird from Brazil called the red-ruffed fruit crow, he would pluck the breastplate feathers and then throw away the rest of the skin. But the really kind of crazy thing that I was up against was that unless the scientific labels that show the year and the altitude and the exact location of where the bird was collected, unless those labels are still tied to the skin, they can't. The skins become useless, and they can't be proven to be part of the heist. And so, I did all of this knowing that, if I surrounded the guy who was holding on to the missing skins with, Interpol or other cops, all he would have to do is just snip the tags off before he opened the door, and he'd be fine.
Wow.
And so that was another kind of crazy dimension to this whole story.
The hummingbird in the book intrigued me too. I mean, it's so tiny.
Yeah, and I forget the exact number, but there was this feather fashion thing reached such an extent that one merchant sold a shawl made of, I think, 7,000 hummingbird skins.
Mm-hmm. It was just unbelievable.
I mean, there was basically whatever. This is really a story about humans' obsession with beautiful things in nature and whether or not we can pull back before we wipe it all off from the face of the planet. And so birds have been kind of an object of desire for as long as we've existed.
Yeah, the book makes me feel like maybe as a species, we human beings haven't been very good stewards of this planet. And maybe the book helps us understand that we need to be. So, was that your hope?
Yeah, I hope so. One of the things is that these birds that we've collected hold answers to questions that we haven't even thought of yet. I mean, who knows what we'll be able to figure out from them in 100 years. They were gathered before we even knew what DNA was or what the gene was. And so, it's not just us and birds. It's also about the importance of these collections and these museums and that they're protected.
The University of Florida, which is what in our listening area, they have a room where you can pull out drawers, and look at birds. They're dead birds that they have in there.
Yeah, they're fascinating.
I don't know what they use it for. I don't know if it's to study for artists, like to draw them, or for bird experts to look at. I don't know. I have a copy.
Those are probably research.
Research, yeah, I would think so.
The Feather Thief. I have a copy of the book. It's written by Kirk Wallace Johnson. Call me if you'd like the copy that was sent to us. The rest of us have to go buy it. Kirk, do you have a website you can direct us to?
Yeah, I guess if people want to learn more, it's you can go to thefeatherthief.com.
Nice.
Easy enough. Kirk, thank you for your work. This is very eye-opening. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We'll be right back.
Direct connects to UCF, where students who attend the College of Central Florida and graduate with an AA or articulated AS degree are guaranteed admission to the University of Central Florida. Success coaches are ready and waiting to assist you in designing an educational plan that is right for you in any of their locations across Central Florida. Remember, connecting is easy and guaranteed. Find out more at directconnecttoUCF.com.
Ocala Business Leaders Incorporated is a group of independent local firms providing a wide range of quality goods and services. Each firm strives to maintain the highest level of professional integrity and 100% customer satisfaction. When you're looking for goods and services, call a member of the Ocala Business Leaders, and we are confident you will be pleased with the results. If you are interested in becoming a member of the Ocala Business Leaders, join us at the Ocala Elks Lodge, 25th Avenue in Ocala, any Wednesday at 7 a.m. and enjoy a breakfast on us. For more information, check OcalaBusinessLeaders.com.
Ready? Here are today's headlines from The Source. WOCA Florida Republican gubernatorial candidate Adam Putnam told a public affairs group yesterday that the keys to curtailing gun violence at schools are to improve the state's mental health programs and to tighten campus security. The Florida Agriculture Commissioner told the Forum Club that he opposed the state bill passed after February's Stoneman Douglas massacre that raised the age for buying a rifle from 18 to 21. He says 19-year-old suspect Nicholas Cruz's history of mental health problems and brushes with the law are the issues, saying Cruz should not have had a gun at 18 or 21 or even 51, unquote. He said Florida needs to hire more school resource officers. Putnam also said he supports President Donald Trump's threatened tariffs on some foreign goods. A woman in Bellevue is searching for answers after her home and cars were spray painted with racial slurs. The homeowner, Nakia Darasaw, who lives on East Highway 25, says when she woke up on Friday morning, she found her entire house and vehicles spray painted in red lettering. She saw racial slurs along the front and sides of her car and truck and noticed that her phone lines had also been cut. Darasaw says her church family has already begun cleaning off the spray paint on the house and that she doesn't know who would do this. The Marion County Sheriff's Office is handling the investigation and are currently looking for leads. Gainesville police are looking for a woman who walked into a PetSmart store on Archer Road and stole a dog. It was all caught on surveillance cameras. Security footage from Saturday afternoon shows the woman walking out with the dog during the adoption event held by the pet rescue group called Hale's Angels. After leaving the store, the woman ran from the area. Managers at PetSmart think the woman came with the intention to steal this particular dog. The daughter of a fallen officer has a couple of suggestions for honoring those killed in the line of duty. Erica Reynolds lost her father 30 years ago when he was killed during a car chase in Miami Beach. She was the keynote speaker at yesterday's annual Fraternal Order of Police Law Enforcement Memorial in Tallahassee.
Today we pay tribute to my dad, to the men and women whose names are inscribed on memorial walls around our state. And we are here to honor those of you in uniform. The men and women who wear those badges are our heroes.
11 law enforcement officers who died last year were honored, and Reynolds told the crowd the way to keep their legacies alive is to love one another and be more compassionate. Over the years, more than 800 Florida officers have made the ultimate sacrifice, including the 4 who have been killed so far this year. There will be a court hearing in Tampa today for 3 men charged with animal cruelty in the infamous shark dragging case. Sharon Parker reports.
Last summer, a video appeared on social media depicting a live shark being violently dragged behind a speeding boat. The video shows 3 men laughing and joking about it. Investigators determined the incident took place near Egmont Key, which is in Hillsborough County's jurisdiction. All 3 suspects have